Hey friends, Mike Williams here with another episode of Tales from Private Practice. In today's episode, we're going to talk about integrated clinics or places where multiple practitioners congregate to work together and grow their practices. I want to talk to you today about some of the benefits of working in this way, some of the very common pitfalls of working this way, and of course, some pro tips from my experience about how to make them work better so that you can thrive financially and personally have a lot of fun during the years of your private practice. And if you stick around till the end, what I'm going to share with you is also the one business model I've seen for integrated clinics that actually works really, really well and tends to have the fewest challenges that goes with it. So stick around for that. So if you're new to this channel, if you're new to this series, I'm Mike Williams. I've been in private practice for 12 years as both a certified Rolfer and Hakomi practitioner. My hope through this series is that I can share with you as a private practitioner in either the wellness fields, either Western or holistic fields, in coaching or as potentially even a therapist, a little bit about my experience, the lessons I've learned, sometimes hard, sometimes a little bit easier, that can hopefully provide you with some insight and information to help you grow and love your private practice like I've learned to do. My whole philosophy for the work I do with my clients, the work I do for myself, and all the content I share in the world is you can't do what you want until you know what you're doing. And I hope that with this content, you're able to see some little tidbits of you in the content, learn some things or gain some awareness about where you might be in challenging or even excellent places in your private practice, and learn and grow and shift for greater success as a result of this information. If you like what you see, of course, please hit the thumbs up button, share with other people that you find might benefit from learning about this, and of course, hit the subscribe button so that YouTube can tell you when I've got new videos out that might be of benefit to you going forward. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive in. So, integrated clinics, right? So, AKA multi-practitioner clinics, AKA wellness centers, AKA multidisciplinary practices, whatever you call them. What I'm talking about here are places where multiple practitioners, potentially of different stripes, come together to work, share space, and grow their businesses together. I spent in my first 7 years in private practice, my time working in the same multimodal clinic with a variety of types of practitioners. We had a pretty big space, and over the years, many different people coming through that space. And so I got to see and experience firsthand many of the ways that these places grow, succeed, and fail. Right. So in our space, we had 7 treatment rooms and anywhere from 5 practitioners on the low end to 10 practitioners or so on the high end, with many different structural arrangements internally as to leadership, control, if you will, structure, sharing arrangements, as well as many different business models from the variety of practitioners that came in over the years. We had myself, a Rolfer, acupuncturists, massage therapists, maybe a talk therapist or two over the year, nutritionists, herbal consultants, kind of you name it. So I got to see a lot. And within that, there were people like myself that were kind of sole practitioners with my own standalone space, my own standalone business. There were people that were very busy, very successful, that were operating fast with multiple rooms at the same time. Then you had part-timers that were maybe sharing space. And And then you had really, really part-timers that might drop in for an hour or three a week and share someone else's space. So a tremendous, tremendous variety of what I've seen. So now the cool thing about these spaces and what makes them really positive, productive, and fun, especially when you first join one, is that they kind of have like a college apartment or house feel to them, right? Like people come together in these spaces for many of the same reasons that people come together in like your college or early adulthood homes, right? On the one hand, of course, to share resources, right? Save costs, live under one roof, work under one roof, share responsibilities, and kind of make a go at building and growing or sustaining businesses together as a unit. That's, of course, one side, just the kind of raw cost and nuts and bolts side, but then there's also like this real fun, energized vision space that often brings people together, whether you know them and have talked to them for a while, know them from your professional circles or school circles, or literal friends with these people. Often there's an initiating energy of some shared vision. Holding events together, cross referrals, which is huge. Everybody needs and wants a really strong referral network. These are great places potentially to build those. And then, of course, just to get, kind of the softer benefits like a support network, places to share your challenges, your successes with, to hear others, to learn and grow in community with other people. So they often are very, very energized when they begin. Now, underneath all that, of course, and different in many ways from your college household, is that you have businesses that are being run. And most often, especially in a clinic like the one I was in, that was more or less a cooperative arrangement, right? We had 5 to 10 people that were sole practitioners sharing space with aspiration, of course, to share effort, to do events together, to refer to each other, right? There's usually that aspiration. But foundationally, there were 5 to 10 individual businesses being run under the same roof, right? And that's potentially good, potentially not so good, right? Depending on you and your partners and your experience and skillfulness in just being human and relating to other people that are organizing around their own sets of priorities, right? So usually with that, that creates, a few realities, right? Potentially challenges too, but a few realities. One is there's kind of the honeymoon phase ends, right? Which is natural in any kind of collection of humans, right? But that initial phase of, hey, we're going to do this together, we're going to share, we're going to cross-refer, that often tapers as the focus, because it's on individual businesses, really hones in on growing and maintaining and tending to the individual business. So that just naturally becomes each individual's, in my clinic, each 5 to 10 individuals' main priority, right? So the focus tends to diminish on the we and hone in towards the kind of more I, right? So, if you're considering one of these scenarios, just know that going into it, right? And it does take, over time, when that happens, much more work to create a collaborative environment, right? So then that's one challenge. Another challenge, and this maybe is a little bit more like the college house or the young adult house or apartment you lived in, or maybe do live in now, is that you have a natural tendencies when humans gather in groups for people to kind of fall back into the roles that they're comfortable or skillful in within group settings, right? So there's often a polarization of skills and just ways of being in groups. So, for example, in groups, some people tend to be the responsible one, right? And in groups, some people tend to be the irresponsible one, right? And maybe it's not even as strong a word as irresponsible, but just less concerned with the maintenance of the whole, where the responsible one is going to be the one who's more on top of bills, shared chores, maintenance of the space, things like that. Now, depending on everyone's skillfulness and self-awareness and ability to communicate clearly, that can be a resource and it can be fine, especially if there's acknowledgement made about people's strengths and learning edges and the roles that people take on naturally, and there's respect for those that take on different roles than other people. But it can also be a real source of conflict. In my situation, I was one of maybe two or so responsible ones, which is not to make me the good guy. Like it got painful. I was basically taking on extra work, to track bills and payment and agreements. So that's not necessarily a good thing at its core. And that can create, quite a bit of conflict just between the various people within the shared space. Now, hopefully that doesn't create a conflict for you like I had in college, where we started leaving people's dishes in their bedroom because they leave the dishes out for days on end. Hopefully you have a more adult business-like atmosphere than that, but in an extreme setting, that's what can happen, right? Like those types of things when humans are being humans, right? So it takes a lot of work to be tracking how people are just being together, right? So that's, another challenge. So, the first one is people honing in on just their businesses in kind of a little more solitary fashion versus the whole. And then the other is just that really basic, innate way of being in community with other people. That will always, always, always come out to play. Okay, and a third place where these clinics kind of reality shows up and can be good or challenging is just in the nature of turnover amongst practitioners, right? So the healing arts is a challenging place to grow a business, and my sense and my experience and exposure is that most people that are drawn to healing practices are not innately really strong business people. That's not everybody, and that's not a value judgment. It's just there's less experience running a business. So these businesses succeed sometimes and they fail sometimes, and that will impact the field of these clinics, right? So you can expect often quite a bit of turnover, right? So that means new people coming in, people leaving, new agreements needing to be made, people needing to be integrated into the whole, and all the challenges that go with that. And that, in my mind, that also kind of fits in with like the college household vibe, and that sometimes people come and go in those places, right? So it's very, very similar to that setup there too. Okay, just another place for you to be aware of. Okay, so Mike's pro tips for how to successfully be a practitioner or a part of an integrated clinic. Okay, so the number one thing, of course, is awareness. And, first of all, awareness, of course, about what it is you're getting into, what's likely to happen. Hopefully this video has been informative along those lines, so you can walk into a situation like that, just understanding like, oh, okay, this is how these things go, right? Knowing that on the front end will save you a lot of pain and challenge, hopefully, right? And number two within awareness is self-awareness, right? Super important. Know how you tend to fall into particular roles, what roles your system you like to or habitually fall into in groups, right? Like, are you the busy one? Are you the one that's a little looser? Are you the one that really drives other people to stick to things? Or are you the one that's a little more like love and light and we're all getting along kind of oriented, right? Whatever it is, just know it so that you can expect when conflict or challenges arise or time passes, how you will fall into a role. And so you can hopefully make some decisions to step out of that role, at least the habitual nature of it, and take on a little bit of a bigger part, take some of the responsibility perhaps from the people who like to grab too much responsibility, and keep things a little more balanced, right? The third third pro tip, if you will, for being in one of these clinics successfully is clear communication, right? And what I mean by clear communication is, of course, talking to people when there are challenges and struggles, but also early and often thoughtful feedback and communication loops when there is a potential for conflict, or when someone does something that doesn't work for you. Like if someone does leave their dishes out overnight, not just sucking it up or getting irritated and not saying anything because like, oh, okay, they'll figure it out. Starting that feedback as early as possible, right? If you don't, what tends to happen is over time, resentment will snowball and it will erupt in a bigger conflict, okay? So clear communication and early, often feedback, okay? And then my last pro tip for being in an integrated clinic successfully is have stated written agreements on the front end, right? About roles, about tasks, and if you can, about what do we do when there's a conflict, right? What do we do when there's a challenge, when someone wants to break the agreement? What do we do when people don't get along, right? Have at least a rough sketch of an action plan for that agreed upon that you can fall back on later for when that happens. Now, bear with me here because I know that, one of the places to fall into in groups in general, but also in like healing arts circles or wellness circles is, this a belief in the just overall good nature of people and their intent. That is not untrue, but I guarantee without an agreement, this is coming from experience and observation both, when conflict happens, when challenges happen, when disagreements happen, you will not be in love and light mode, right? No one will be. And you need to have stated agreements for like, okay, we're in it, we're emotional, we're challenged, and there's an impulse to just be in friction and be more focused on what's important to you than to the group or the agreements made. That's when you need to already have a structure agreed upon that you can fall back into. That, although it's my last pro tip, is really the numero uno that's needed, right? If you don't want to do the self-awareness thing, if you don't want to know your roles, if you don't want to communicate feedback, at least have agreements in place on the front end as to what will happen. Don't count on people being good people or we'll work it out. Like, it almost never happens that way. So please trust me on that one. Okay, so this has been a pretty long video, and if you're still with me at this point, thank you, first of all. But let's wrap it up with, as promised, the one business model I've seen for integrated clinics that can be the most financially viable and also the most successful and least potential for conflict that I've seen. And that is the model of a integrated clinic where there is one alpha or a partnership, a leadership team who kind of owns the clinic, right? Who has the clear vision for what the clinic is, and kind of drives the movement forward of the clinic. Everyone else in that case tends to be kind of at a, if this is the alpha or the partnership that's running the show, everyone else is kind of at a power level, if you will, below them. They might work directly for them where there are shared revenue agreements. They might rent from them and pay directly to them, or be part-time or full-time, but they are most definitely under the alpha. Now, that person who's the alpha, they take on a big role, and they have a lot of responsibility, maybe more financial exposure. They might be the person on the lease, or they might even own the building, right? Or they might be the employer, right? Or the person who pays the other people, right? If it's their name on the door, clients might come in to see them or their clinic, and then they refer out to you or the kind of sub practitioners, and that's where the revenue sharing takes place. But they are the principal person with the principal vision. Now, the reason this works best is because there's one unified vision. Bottom line, right? When you have the more cooperative arrangement that I've been in, that I described, and we've talked about really up to now, as I said, there's the tendency for focus to disperse and for priorities to disperse into, whatever the number of practitioners is, number of unique individual and potentially competing visions. Those tend to bump up against each other, or at least not provide enough unity to really grow and create something bigger, right? So that doesn't mean they won't work. There are many ways, as I've just described, that under which they can work well. But if you're looking to create with that kind of magical, excited, collegial energy on the front end, if you're looking to create something viable and sustainable for the long term, there needs to be a person that's a leader, or a set of people that are the leader with their vision, and everyone else buys into that vision and knows that it's not fully theirs, right? But they're a part of it, right? It's like being an employee at any company, right? The CEO is the boss, and everybody follows their lead, right? Not dissimilar here. So if that's what you're aiming at, best of luck. I think that's a brilliant way to really be successful in this business, which is what it is. So, all right, I'll wrap it up there. Hopefully you found this to be really, really helpful content. Again, if you enjoyed it, please throw me a thumbs up, write me a comment. I would also love to hear your experiences. Like, what have you found to be successful or challenging in situations like this? I'm happy to provide any thoughts I can through the comments. You can reach out anytime. Also, if this didn't work for you, if you didn't like it, that's okay. Give me a thumbs down. Give me some constructive feedback. I'd love to hear any feedback you have for me about how I can make this content more powerful, more engaging, more useful for you. So I look forward to seeing you for the next video, and hopefully your integrated clinic experiences go extremely well. All right, cheers all.